In this presentation, we're going to start looking at the marketing mix, and the first element of the marketing mix is product. So our learning intentions then are to become familiar with the different elements of the marketing mix and the impact that they have on the other products. And the first one, we're obviously going to look at product. We're going to be able to describe the different stages of the product life cycle. We're going to be familiar with the different extension strategies that we can use in the product life cycle. We will briefly talk about branding, albeit that is a National 5 topic, and we're going to be aware of the varied product portfolio and its costs and benefits, and in doing that we're going to understand the Boston Matrix and its use. So this slide here is really just a diagram of the different elements of the extended marketing mix, and the elements we're going to look at are product, price, place, promotion, people, process, and physical evidence. And by the end of this, we are going to be able to, after we've discussed product, ask the question, if a business was to change the product, how could this impact on the other elements of the marketing mix? And the other elements we're interested in at the moment are the main ones: price, promotion, and place. So what is product then? A product must meet the needs of the customer and benefit the customer. The product may be a good or a service, so when we talk about product here, we are going to talk about products and services. And the product includes packaging, the image, the guarantee, after-sales service, etc. This next diagram here is the product life cycle. Now, this is not the product life cycle for every single product, but it's the kind of main product life cycle, generic one, if you like. However, there will be products that will almost go straight into growth because there's maybe a waiting list for them. People have been eagerly anticipating them for a while. So as I say, these products will have a slightly different shaped life cycle. But the normal product life cycle looks like this. And the product life cycle shows the stages that a product goes through, from it first being thought of until perhaps being taken off the market. So the development phase is the very, very first phase. Now, at this stage, the product has been researched and developed. So, for example, if the product is a product-led product, then the inventor, the organisation will be homing in on the quality of the product to make sure it's researched and developed properly. If it's a market-led product, then the company will have looked to the consumer, looked to the market to see what's already there, etc. But that's research and development. If the product is in any way a kind of reasonable size or expensive product, then it would be a sensible thing to create a prototype of the product and then test it. So, for example, this is used for things like cars, etc., games consoles. After customer feedback is given, or the testing, the results of the testing are given, then changes, tweaks, etc. will be made to the product. And then at this stage, that would be then when they start to mass produce the product. At this stage, there are no sales as yet, and the product will be making high losses due to the development costs and the fact that no income is coming in through sales. The first stage when the product actually starts to make sales is introduction, and this is when the product is launched onto the market. There'll probably be some kind of hype, there might be some kind of pre-advertising, etc., promotional activities, etc., to try and gain some kind of hype for the product. At this stage, generally speaking, sales will be slow, as customers don't know about the product yet, and they're still quite unsure about it. There will still be losses, as well as the development costs you're now having to pay for any initial promotional costs, etc. The next stage is growth, and at this stage the product has now been on the market for a bit of time. Customers are now aware of the product and wanting to buy it. Sales will be starting to rise rapidly, perhaps due to increased customer confidence in the product, and perhaps there may also be a lack of competition. Profits are starting to be made to recoup the losses from development and the initial promotion costs as well. So you're now starting to make profits here at this stage. Maturity is the stage when the product has now been on the market for some time. Some products that we use today are still at the maturity stage of the cycle and have been there for a very long time. Some products go very, very quickly through the different stages. If it's a kind of trendy product or a product that's maybe got newer versions coming out, etc. At maturity, competitors see this product being on the market and maybe try to enter the market with their version of the product. Sales growth will peak at this level and start to level out. And you can still have sales made, as I've mentioned, things like Kellogg's Cornflakes, Rice Krispies, HP sauce, all these sorts of things have been at the maturity stage for a very long time. Profits are still healthy, but they will be starting to fall because the competition is now starting to take some of your sales. Saturation wouldn't have been spoken about for those who have studied National 5, but that is really when sales are starting to decline. You're finding that you're only getting repeat purchases, previous customers replacing the product or whatever. You're not really getting any new sales. And at this stage, in order to sell products, you might have to drop your prices. And obviously, if you're dropping your prices, the difference between the price and the cost to manufacture is getting narrower, which means your profit margins are getting smaller. The final stage is decline, and this is when the product's life is nearing the end and the company are going to stop producing it. Sales are falling rapidly, and eventually the product will be withdrawn from the market because it's no longer profitable to make the product. Profits are really continuing to fall, and you could be starting to make losses again. The goods will be sold at knockdown prices in order to clear them and even to break even from them. So as I say, this is the decline stage, is really when the product should be taken off the market, and we call these dogs, and these will be discussed further when we look at the Boston Matrix shortly. This is just a task that you will carry out in class, and it's to make a list of some of the products in the different categories, products that you maybe use today that would be in the 4 main categories of introduction, growth, maturity and decline. What then happens is, and this is most definitely a higher type question, are extension strategies. So when the product gets to a certain level, normally heading for maturity, it would be sensible if organisations have got ideas on how to extend the life of the product to perhaps start putting these into operation. And it's to stop the product reaching the decline stage, trying to prolong its life a little bit. Companies want their products to remain competitive for as long as they possibly can. Now, what this next slide does here is it asks you to find products that maybe have changed over the years to allow them to continue to sell, some examples of extension strategies and what the businesses have actually done to make sure that they continue to sell the products. So examples of ways to extend your product life cycle would be to improve the product itself. You tend to find this with things like soap powders, new improved performance or new whiter clothes or whatever. New uses for the product. People tended to have coal fires in the past. They may have used firelighters, zip firelighters to light their coal fire. Now people tend to use firelighters for things like setting up your barbecue or gas, your wood burners outside, wood burning stoves, all these sorts of things. So the use for firelighters has kind of changed a tad. Altering the packaging. It could be you maybe make the packaging brighter, you maybe decide to change what the packaging's made of. For example, crisps used to come in plastic packaging. Now they come in kind of foil packaging to let people think that they tend to be kept fresher for longer, etc. You can also change the channel of distribution. For example, try maybe online selling or maybe selling through social media outlets, etc. And this gives you a chance to extend the product's life. You can change the product's price, maybe bring in some kind of new pricing strategy, introduce some kind of premium pricing to let customers think that the product is maybe of a higher standing, better quality, etc. So what I would like you to do for this next slide is using the internet, maybe research a product where the extension strategy has been used to prolong its life cycle. Now you've already looked at some products in one of the previous slides there about extension strategies, and create a short report describing the product, its history and the different extension strategies over the years. And there are some very good examples of these. Things like a perfect example for this would be things like Mars bars. Mars bars have changed in lots of ways over the years, and that's one kind of idea that you could use for this. And this next slide here is just a video link for extension strategies, so it's worth a wee watch. And while we're on videos, the next slide here gives you an example of products that have not been properly researched when they've come onto the market, and there have been issues with them. They've failed, and as I say, they could be worth a watch. It might be up to yourself which ones there you would maybe like to watch. Branding is a National 5 topic, however, we do cover it in a bit of just a little bit here, just so that you can understand it, especially if you're crashing the subject. You probably wouldn't be asked a question on branding, but once again, we're kind of building up to brands and the Boston Matrix, etc. So we would like to cover it here. A brand is a name, symbol, design, or any other feature given to a product that makes it distinctive to consumers. So we all know what Heinz products like. We know McDonald's. These are all examples of brands. Advantages and disadvantages of brands then. Money can be saved on marketing as the customer is already aware of the brand, so it becomes easier for organisations to introduce new products under their brand with little cost because customers already know it. Higher prices can be charged for brands because people seem to think that branded products are of a better quality. And customers can become loyal to the brand as it's familiar. So what you'll find is no matter what price is paid, customers will be happy to continue buying that brand. However, a big problem with some branded products, clothing, jewellery, bags, shoes, etc., is that brands can be copied or fakes can be made of them. And what this does for the branded company is that they're losing out in sales. It can also require high levels of R&D, research and development, to be able to keep bringing out more products under your brand. And another issue is that a poor brand, one of the products in your brand may not be doing what it says, or it might not be very good quality or whatever, and that could actually affect the whole brand, the whole range under the brand. So these can be problems with branding. A lot of supermarkets have these products called own brands under the supermarket's own name, Tesco, Morrison's, Asda, whatever, and some businesses will have own brand products. These were originally aimed at people in lower incomes, but are now popular with a majority of people. Now, own brands tend to be made by branded companies, by companies who produce branded products, and Tesco will commission, for example, Heinz to make their ketchup for them. Tesco will decide how much they want to spend on the raw materials, if they want their products imported, if they want to use products from this country or whatever. But that's the reason why own brand products tend to be cheaper. They tend to be cheaper because inferior raw materials may be used, and also you're not paying for the actual branded name of them. But these own brand products do tend to be made by branded companies. So some advantages and disadvantages then. They don't require much advertising. You don't tend to find that Aldi or Morrison's or Safeway, Tesco actually advertise individual products. You'll see them advertised as a whole company. So advertising doesn't cost much. They're manufactured by another company, as I've already mentioned, but the organisation does retain control over how they're produced, as I mentioned to you, with the raw materials, etc., and how they would like the packaging to look and things like that. However, they're perceived as being of poorer quality, which may reduce the sales of them, and they can be viewed as a copy or imitation of a brand. You tend to find some people may not rate them because they've just really, the company's used no initiative and they just look exactly the same. For example, Aldi's Jaffa Cakes and McVitie's Jaffa Cakes, the packaging looks very, very similar. So they tend to just be copied. Now this next slide is a video, a couple of video links on branded and own brand products. Worth a wee look at these while you're there. Before we look at the Boston Matrix, I'd like to look at a couple of terms here, and one is a product line portfolio and one is the diversified product portfolio. And a product line portfolio is a group of products closely related as they function in a kind of similar manner and sold to the same customer group. So if you think of Heinz, they've got a variety of soups, cream of tomato, lentil, vegetable, etc. And that forms a product line. The products are made in a similar fashion, just with different ingredients. A diversified product portfolio is where an organisation involves having very different products on sale across a number of different segments. For example, you've got Virgin there with cruises, with airlines, with credit cards, with phones, etc. That's what we call a diversified product portfolio. This takes us on to the Boston Matrix. And the Boston Matrix is an analytical tool used by companies to assess the product range, to see how the products are faring. So it could be that when these products are plotted on this matrix, there may be a number of products that require further investment or products that should be taken away completely they should stop being made because they're not making the company any profits. So if an organisation has a portfolio, organisations with a range of products would use this. It really is for organisations with a number of products. It has to choose which products which are worth investing in, and the Boston Matrix allows the company to analyse its product portfolio. It splits products into 4 categories and determines whether they have high or low market growth, as in, is the market for the product generally growing, and high or low market share, the percentage of sales the company has or that product has in over all the sales in that particular product. So the Boston Matrix looks like this, and you'll see there are 4 different categories. We have stars, we have cash cows, we have dogs, and we have problem children. And they're all rated according to high and low market share and high and low market growth. And we're going to look at each of these in turn now. Now, cash cows, this is where the company has a high market share in a slow growing industry. So we're talking here about things that get you easy money. They require little marketing due to the lack of real competition or the fact that they're diehards, they're steadfast products in the industry. Products in this category tend to be and have been for a while at the maturity stage of the product life cycle. So I've got things here like Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office do bring out new versions all the time, but it's very widely used in offices and schools and educational establishments, etc. It's been around for a long time and people still buy it. Kellogg's Cornflakes and Rice Krispies are another example of that. Because the money generated from these products is so easy to get, you tend to be able to use these for riskier ventures, so you can take the money from these easy products and put them into more risky products. And one of the things you can do here is you can strengthen your stars, which we're going to talk about later. The next category are dogs, and dogs are products with a low market share in a very low, mature, slow growing industry. These can adversely affect your profits because there really isn't much left by the way of sales. If you think of DVD sales now, companies selling DVDs in the form of games or movies, then these products the whole industry is flat, and if that company has maybe not so popular DVDs or whatever, then you'll tend to find that they've maybe got a lower market share. So CDs, DVDs, all these things really tend to be dogs. And what companies should do with dogs is they should really stop producing them. If they feel that another company may want to buy these products for a reason, then this is when they could be divested. We talked about this with Mini when it was divested, but it was turned into something really good after that from BMW. But dogs tend to be products that they're really dead in the water. There's not an awful lot can be done with them. They're really just eating into your company's profits. Stars are products that have a high market share in an industry that's fast growing, in a fast growing market. And stars require high funding to fight competition and to maintain a high growth rate. These require a lot of work, these stars. You have to keep working on them to bring out newer versions, to keep them fresh in the market. They do bring you in lots of profits, but they do cost you money too. Stars will tend to be a market leader in an organisation. So we're thinking here about things like iPads and iPhones. These tend to be market leaders. They're constantly being refreshed to keep them fresh, to keep them competitive. Stars could eventually become cash cows, or if they become perhaps something that's maybe a technology advancement that soon becomes old hat, then they could eventually become dogs. The example I've used here is iPads, but iPhones, things like that are what we call stars. They do require a lot of money, but can be very successful. We then have question marks. The other name for question marks are problem children. And these are products that have got a company with a high market growth, but they have got a low share of that market. So the market's growing really fast, but they've got a low share of it. And problem children have got a potential to gain market share. However, they do really take a lot of investment. They are a very dodgy deal. They might not work out, and it's really risky for the organisation to carry on with them, but they can work out well. They can be turned into stars if you're really fortunate. However, sometimes they've got some really, really strong competition there that will stop them doing that. I'm thinking here of less popular brands of tablets. People maybe buy a cheaper brand of tablet and they're just not going to compete with the more expensive iPad. So as I say, these are problems. These are competing with the stars, and they could be very, very difficult to make something out of, but never say never sort of thing. So what are the advantages then to an organisation of having a varied product portfolio? Cash cows, we talked about these things with like your Kellogg's cornflakes and your Microsoft Office, etc. They can fund other riskier ventures. So they're giving you easy money and you can then fund your stars, etc. Stars will allow the business to be a market leader in one area, which could improve their brand image. Stars are high growth industries, high selling products, high market share. Question marks allow a business an opportunity to invest and grow. Question marks can add to your product portfolio, but they do, bear in mind, require a lot of risk. But if you make something good of them, then you can gain profit from them. And it does allow you to identify your dog, so you can divest these to reduce any losses that you might have. On the next slide, we've got some more advantages, more general ones. The risk can be spread over different markets. If you have a range of products, you can spread your risk. The needs of a number of market segments can be met with the varying range of products you've got. Newer products can replace those at the end of the cycle, so you can always have products coming in as others are leaving. A range of products raises awareness of your brand, as we talked about with Heinz, etc. And your business, as we've said before, will find it easier to launch new products if they have this varied product portfolio. There are, however, disadvantages as always. There are high costs involved in research and development because you've got so many products you've got to try and research and develop and market. The bad publicity surrounding one product can affect your whole portfolio. Resources assigned to new products may affect the performance of existing products, so you've got to try and kind of work out, can I afford to put resources into that, for example, staffing, etc., and what happens to your other products? Do they suffer as a result of that? And remember, if you don't divest your dogs or stop producing them altogether, they can drain the business of profits. Now, the next couple of slides, there are a couple of Boston Matrix tasks here. And the first one here is allowing you to familiarise yourself with the 4 categories of the Boston Matrix and think of 3 products on the market that could be categorised into each of the 4 stages: stars, question marks, cash cows and dogs. There's also a really good link to a Boston Matrix video here on this slide, which is worth a good watch. And the second Boston Matrix task is asking you to carry out some internet research on a company of your choice that has a varied product portfolio and is asking you to produce a Boston Matrix to show the products they sell in each of the different categories and putting them into the different categories. This is, going back to the slide I mentioned earlier, now that you've discussed product and you know what it's all about, then by changing the product, you would be able to see the impact that it would have on the other main elements of the marketing mix: price, promotion and place. Thank you very much.